is about my grandmother, and it's actually not in the book, so you're getting a special bonus. And you'll just have to, I didn't have enough paper to copy it for everybody. I didn't know how many people would be here. But it's all in the book. So anyway, Grandma was a very big influence on me. And for the last few years of her life, she was in my town where I lived, and we kind of helped take care of her for a little bit. And she used to tell me this poem that relates to the owl on the front of the handout. If you see, this little owl right here is Squirmy Owl. Squirmy Owl is the mascot of my day job. I have a company, work with a company called IRMI, which is International Risk Management Institute. We're in the insurance business. We do technical publications for insurance people. And then I also do this. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. It's a mouthful. But Squirmy Owl is our little mascot. And it's an ironic story that I ended up at a company that has an owl for a mascot. And the reason it's ironic is because of this little story grandmother used to tell me that ties into the lessons I'd like to talk about today. Grandma would say very frequently, enough that I now still have it memorized, a wise old owl sat in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we all be like that wise old bird? Grandma didn't make that up. That story has been around since the 1800s. It was, I guess, a story that was told to children, a poem that children would memorize sometime back then. But it says something, doesn't it? We need to listen. And I would say the number one lesson in leadership is just listen. Just listen. We aren't doing that enough. We are so busy, and we are trying to pound everything into a short day, and we're multitasking, and we're juggling, and balance is the word of the day, isn't it? Because everybody's trying to do so much. So, to stop and listen is sometimes difficult. But we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because we need twice as much listening as we do talking. And good leaders are often the kind of people who want to be in front. They want to talk, they want to tell, they want to preach, they want to teach, they want to have that stage. And sometimes that means we don't listen as well. So my first note to you today is that listening is going to be very important. And I want to talk about the communication set that goes with listening. This is Angel. And I want to tell you a little bit about Angel, because Angel taught me about communication. She was a very special dog. I got her when she was a tiny thing. That's her puppy picture. She's about 14 weeks old, and I was helping a friend at her veterinary clinic. And when I asked what was wrong with the little white dog, she said, "Oh, she just needs a home." And I was hooked, and she was my dog for 16 years until last year, when she finally was sick and we had to let her go. Angel taught me about communication. This dog almost spoke English to me. It was really ironic. She could come to me and nudge me with her nose or bark a little bark, and she had all these different varying types of barks. So I knew when the cat was locked in the closet, and I knew when the bathtub was overflowing, and I knew when one of the other dogs was accidentally locked outside on a 20-degree night. She talked to me that way. She communicated. I told a couple stories last time about how one time we weren't listening, and she was pushing and shoving and barking, and she finally went over to her water dish and she went, just mad at us. What was a bone dry water dish? We got a big 5-gallon jug after that. It made it automatic. This dog could talk to us. Communication is all about making sure that you're open and that they're open, that you're not distracted, that you're not doing 9 other things while you're trying to have the conversation. Clear your desk. Make sure that you've got eye contact. Speak to the person with your whole body. There's a UCLA study out there that says 58% of the message that you convey to someone when you're talking to them is your body language. Has anybody seen that study before? Heard about it? Only 7% of the words and 38% is your tone of voice. So it's 55, I think I said 58 before. It's 55, 38, and 7. So if you're on the phone with somebody, what does that make it? Can't see you. A lot worse, isn't it? What if you're doing email? Texting? Even worse. All you've got is that verbal aspect, which is only 7% of the whole message. So yes, you should choose your words carefully. But just as you say to a puppy that runs in your house, muddy, as has happened to me many times, and you say, "Oh my goodness, you're just a mess." What do they hear? "Mommy loves you." Because of the tone of voice, because of the body language. You could say, "Yeah, I love you." And what is that message? So you need to be aware of all the aspects of the communication, because communication truly is the difference between good leadership and bad leadership. It's that line in the sand that if you don't have that, almost nothing else you do matters. So the other thing that we need to communicate carefully, the why do you care line on that sheet, is why do they care? When we're talking to our people that we're leading, whether it's our kids or our husbands or the people at work, and sometimes we use this stuff on our husbands, right? That's sometimes how it works. We need to make sure that we're thinking about it from their perspective. It's so easy to say, "Well, this is what I would do." But maybe that means nothing to the person you're speaking to. Maybe their motivation is completely different than yours. We can inspire people, but we really can't motivate them. We have to be coming at it from their perspective, and that means you ask a lot of questions, which is another huge communication tool. Ask questions. You can't ask too many questions. Even when you're trying to instruct, you can do it by a question. How would it be if we tried this? Or what would you think if? Did you know "what do you think" are the 4 most valuable words in the English language? What do you think? There's a whole book you should read. It's called Neuromarketing. Neuromarketing. It's all about the amygdala, the part of the brain that relies on our instincts and sets up everything in our body to do everything we do, like breathe and run from a snake if we see one and blink our eyes and all those things. Well, this part of the body, the amygdala, controls decision making. And so when you ask someone what they think, it triggers that internal survival mode for some reason. We don't know why. And all of a sudden they like you because you want to know what they think. You're not trying to tell them what you think. It's called Neuromarketing. Really good book. I've read it twice. I've been to the class the guy teaches a couple of times. We apply it at ERMI. It's how we do our marketing. It's a really good marketing book. But sometimes the communication that you have to present to someone is a scary thing. You're asking for a raise and they might say no. You're asking for a promotion and they might say no. You're interviewing for a job. You're having to tell someone you don't want to go out with them anymore, you don't want to marry them, or you want to divorce them, or you have a person that's causing you a problem at the office and you need to get into that mode with them where they are listening to your input because the job has to go on whether or not you like each other. You still have to communicate. And that's the other thing that's hard for us girls. We want everybody to like us. Don't we? I mean, most of us. There are mean girls, but Plaid doesn't have mean girls. We know that part, right? But sometimes you just have to say the truth, and you have to do what I have called, from another book I read a long time ago, caring candor. Caring candor, it's important. You have to be honest, even if it hurts. And for that, you need to be more like my little bird, Napoleon. Napoleon was absolutely fearless. He was 8 inches long, including his tail, and he thought he was 8 foot tall. He would climb down on the ladder from his cage, and he would walk across the room, and he explored our whole house all by himself when he first moved in, thought that it was his place. It was his jungle to explore, I guess. He was completely fearless. And he taught me that you have to continue to explore. So sometimes these difficult conversations take a type of a bravery. You have to be brave. You have to kind of pull on your boots or your big girl panties or whatever it is they say these days, and you have to just do the thing that is scaring you. But the exploration and that bravery kind of go together, don't they? Sometimes you have to get out of your rut. You have to stand up and say, it's time to move on. It's happened to me. I was in a job that could have been the thing I did the rest of my career. I was in my late 40s. We were in Tallahassee. I was a VP of a great organization, but I knew it was as far as I was going to go. And I had 11 years there. I had people there. I had a church there. My church now is only 2 miles down the road from here. Great to be that close. But we we just decided, my husband and I said, you know, we're really as far as we're going to get. So we packed up 2 horses, 3 birds, 5 cats, and 3 dogs at that time. And we moved from Tallahassee to Dallas, so that I could start a consulting company and write my book. And he got a job as a claims adjuster at the time. That's what he did. And we just up and did it. And it was the scariest thing I think I've ever done. Because I probably could have rode the end. I could have gone out to retirement at that place and probably would have done a great job for him. But sometimes you got to keep moving. I know you know this. You just moved recently, Becky, and it's a hard thing. It's scary. But that's our growth. That's what makes us better leaders, is all those things that happen to us that build our character and make us tougher and move us along in life. Standing up at these meetings is not hard for some of us, but it's terrifying for some of us. Every time I come out, I'm a little bit afraid. What if I stumble? What if I forget a line? What if my hair's out of place? What if they don't like me? But sometimes you just have to keep moving and be brave. Courage is not the absence of fear. You've heard that, right? It's being afraid and doing it anyway. And Napoleon taught me that. He was a great little bird. He only lived about 9 years. He was funny as heck, too. We would have just little funny things he would do. One time, he was on the shoulder here, and I used to like to give him a little bit of my iced tea. And I would say, want a drink? So another time, someone else had him on his shoulder, and he was walking across the room, and he was taking a drink out of his can, and the bird said, want a drink? He was communicating. And then the other thing that was fun that happened with the bird, I love to tell those funny animal stories. I was in a trunk show, a line of clothing that's out of business now, but they had a flare skirt on, and I was kind of modeling the skirt. You know how you do with those things. And I did like this. And the skirt swirled around me, and the bird went just right at the right time. It was hilarious. It was almost like he knew. I'm sure he did. But exploration and getting out of your comfort zone doesn't have to mean you leave your job. It could mean you come to something like this. It could mean you do something new as a hobby. It could mean that you do some new volunteer work, go help someone else with something they're afraid of. But you need to do it because it keeps your brain juiced. One of the things we know with brain science is that you have to try new things, or your brain literally gets in a rut. Those neurons get slower and slower, and you need that lubrication that comes with moving from the left brain to the right brain, and keep a balance. If you're a very logical, orderly people, go do something messy sometime. If you're one of those people that hates to write us a blog. Talk about what you do, just once. Do something out of your comfort zone, because it really does keep your brain alive. We know now that it helps doesn't cure Alzheimer's, it slows it down, it prevents dementia, it actually prevents dementia if you keep learning new things all the time. So remember little Napoleon, if he could march around that huge space on his own and be brave, maybe we can too. But the other thing that happens when you get brave is sometimes you get hard. Maybe you've been hurt a lot. Maybe something's happened. Maybe you've had a boss behind you in a meeting and you didn't see it go like this, which I had happen to me. Talk about a sad moment. It wrecked my credibility for the rest of my life with everybody in that room. And you know what? That's okay. It would help me know that it was time to move on from that one too. But sometimes that can make us hard. It can make us hurt. And it can make us mean. This is sometimes, I think, where that mean girl stuff comes from. And Gabby reminded me about kindness. The top picture of Gabby is a little bit after I got him, but when he was still dull and gray and hurting and skinny and he hadn't been fed right. He's a rescue horse. And the bottom picture is what it looks like when you take care of someone. And how much better he looked, even at the age of 19. This horse lived to be 35 in my care. And he was sick a good long time. But just that regular brushing and good food and good love and helping this animal helped keep him alive. He was on the way to the slaughterhouse. And I got 17 more years from him. Kind of chokes me up. But he taught me about kindness. When I met Gabby, I was a stranger to him. but a friend of a friend knew that he needed somewhere, and I went to meet him, and I walked out, and they walked him out, and they had him all chained up. It was horrible. And he lays that big head on my shoulder, and he just went, you just feel it. He just needed love. So be brave, but stay kind. We need to be kind to each other, and we need to follow our instinct that we're herd animals. We belong together. We don't need to put up walls. And our instincts push us to help others in the worst of times, don't they? I mean, every tragedy, every disaster, every time there's been a big thing that's hit the news about some major event, people reach out, don't they? They say, let me help, let me write checks, let me give blood. That's kindness, that's our instinct. To be kind, to work together to survive. We should nurture each other, and we should dare to trust, like he did when he laid that big head on me. He trusted me. He wanted to be with me. Please go ahead and eat. And the other thing Gabby taught me that I think is important to our conversation today is never quit asking. We have to push a little harder as women. And there's scientific reasons for why men look at us differently than we look at them, and I could go into all of that. I've studied it all. But it doesn't matter why, we just have to do it. We have to push a little harder, we have to behave a little differently. But it's okay, because we know we can. We know we can. But you have to keep asking in a way that men don't. So, for example, one of the jobs I had, I got to be vice president, I was doing a great job, they were grooming me for a promotion, and I kind of relaxed. I kind of stopped talking about it. Maybe missed a lunch with the guys every once in a while. And all of a sudden I get the news that the promotion I was being groomed for was being given to, guess what? Another guy. Yeah. And you know what? I honestly believe sometimes that there are really good men who are just raised that way. They just don't know any better. Sometimes it's intentional. This time I don't think it was, but it reminded me that I had forgotten to stay on my A game. We have to keep asking. And the story that relates with Gabby that really is truly a life-saving story, when I got him, he had a foot problem. It was why he wasn't grazing and why he hadn't had a lot of food and why he was so skinny and on the way to the slaughterhouse. And we found out what the problem was, and we got him some medicine, and he was better. And then the medicine started to have a worse effect on him than the problem he had to begin with. And I thought we were going to lose him after only about 9 years. And then we didn't, because I kept asking. I asked everybody who would talk to me about horses if they knew about this disease that he had, and if they'd ever heard of anything that would cure it. And one day I'm in a feed store that I didn't even usually go to, and I'm chit-chatting with the owner, like I knew her. I didn't. Here's Gabby, here's what's going on. Oh yeah, we have something that'll help that. It's a natural remedy called Stop the Pain, and it works in humans too. And I said, I've never heard of this. She said, yep, took it home, weaned him off the other medicine, put him on this medicine, and got another 8 years out. I just kept asking. I kept pursuing the dream of keeping this horse alive because I wanted him to stay with us as long as we possibly could, but not in pain. You know, you always do the merciful thing there, but I feel like we get comfortable. And I bet guys do this too. I don't know, I don't study it in them, but I bet guys do this too. I bet they get comfortable and they kind of relax in their job and they think, okay, it's good, and I trust everybody here, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But you know what? You've gotta stay on the forefront. You gotta keep asking, you gotta keep pushing. But you gotta balance it too. And that's the other part that goes with this little slide that's not about an animal. But you still have to be human. You have to balance your life, you know? Use your heart, feel things, be kind, be brave, but you do have to prove it. You have to make sure that everyone knows what you can do and how well you do it, and that you have your A game on all the time. But you do also have to balance these things. Some of you have small children, some of you finally have time with your husbands because you don't have kids in the house anymore. Whatever your passion is, be sure you're balancing the rest of your life with that. That doesn't mean you don't bring your A game, but maybe you bring it 50 hours instead of 80. Maybe you talk more about some things, but you listen more about others. Just listen more, pay attention, spend your time wisely, because it's the only life we've got. And if it makes you a better human, it makes you a better leader. Finally, I have a little poem I want to read to you. This is anonymous, but it's in my book. It's something I love because I'm an animal person, and it has nothing to do with leadership. But I think you'll like it. It came to me that every time I lose a dog, they take a piece of my heart with them. And every new dog that comes into my life gifts me with a piece of their heart. If I am blessed to live long enough, all of the components of my heart will be dog, and I will become as generous and loving as they are. Thank you. Any questions?